Hello and welcome to Radio on the TV. I'm Corey Anderson and I'm joined here by the wonderful Ronnie Young. Ronnie, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me on, Corey.
What do you do?
Wow, we're going straight in with the questions. We're not doing any of that intro stuff. We're not saying, we've been back after, a term of not being on YSTV Live.
Yeah, I forgot we had the first season of this show, didn't we?
You completely forgot about the first season that happened, not 6 months ago, a lot longer than 6 months ago now.
Despite me being on it.
Yes, despite the fact that you were co-producing it, yeah.
Yeah.
That's gotta say, that's quite impressive. What were we talking about?
What were we talking about?
You went straight in with the question of what do I do?
Yes. So what do you do at UOY? Is what I wanted to ask.
So I'll start off with just my job title is program controller, and that you might think, oh, that sounds important. I explain it in two ways.
Okay.
One, I am in charge of the schedule and deciding what shows go on air and when, which is basically just going, oh, this person has asked for a show at this time, say, X o'clock on a Friday.
That's my favorite
every
time.
week. Yeah, X o'clock is a good time. Yeah.
Time I scroll on Twitter.
Yeah.
X.
Shut up. Yeah, so someone's applied for a show at X o'clock on a Friday. There's no show on at that time. They can have it. That's like half of my job. The other half is what I like to describe as being the fun police. Now, because at URY we are a licensed radio station, we have to deal with that annoying, pesky little thing called Ofcom.
We love you, really.
Yeah, we love you, really, Ofcom, definitely.
Definitely, 100%.
Yeah. I hold no contempt towards you at all. I can get away with that. We're online. We're not.
This isn't an Ofcom production.
Yeah, we can get away with that here. But yeah, my job is to basically make sure that nobody swears on air, nobody goes particularly, into broadcasting, stuff that they shouldn't.
Like Crab Rave under the story of...
That's a story.
That's a story. Maybe we'll tell it on a future episode.
Maybe that can be told on a future episode, or if we've got time at the end, I guess.
Maybe, potentially.
That's a story. Anyway, yeah, so that's pretty much what I do.
You police fun.
Yeah, I stop people from having fun, and I put shows on there.
So you did say, oh yeah, if someone requests an X o'clock and there's not a show there, you usually just let them have it. Have you ever looked at someone's application and went, I just don't think that's a good idea?
I mean, I've looked at shows and gone, this seems like a bad idea, but also it's student radio. Nobody is worrying about that sort of thing. It might turn out that my initial thoughts on how good this is going to be are entirely wrong. It could sound like a terrible idea, but end up being genius.
Like that TV on the radio thing. What is that?
Yeah, it's like you can't even see.
I have to consciously try and get those two in the right way round when I say it and make sure I'm referring to the right one.
You just have to turn and take a glance.
Take a glance at the TV.
Take a slight glance at the graphic behind us that is this one and not the other one.
Yeah, the graphic that I actually made about 10 minutes ago in Canva.
Oh, okay.
So I realized we didn't have a graphic.
Well, you didn't want to use the one from Series 1?
Well, with the Series 1, the shitposty one from Series 1 with the Comic Sans everywhere.
Yes, the shitpost Comic Sans one from Series 1.
Who is graduated. Yes. No, I didn't use that. I don't even know where that is. If I even wanted to use that, I don't know where that graphic is.
Yeah, I was going to say, do we have the assets from Series 1?
Well, thing is, this is a tangent, but it's fine.
This is a tangent that's not related to the interview whatsoever.
Welcome to URY. YTV's current asset management system, Bowser, didn't exist when we did the last season.
Well, wasn't YCV Asset Management at that point just Google Drive.
Send it.
Yes, it was literally just send it via Google
Hope
Drive.
someone gets it.
And hope someone gets it.
I think I sent because we obviously pre-record the last episode of Radio the TV. I think I sent it on Slack to Cameron at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Ronnie,
Anyway, just completely
Back on with the
trying
interview.
to drag the conversation back.
what would you say is your favorite production you've been involved in?
My favorite production. Oh gosh, there's so many.
Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, you have really put me on the spot because there are so many that in the time that I've been within URY, I've had the joy of being involved with. I guess.
You can list multiple if you want. We're not on a shortage of time.
Yeah, I mean, Roses is obviously the big main one. You know, it's I think.
What is Roses for those?
So
that
yeah,
might not be
for
aware?
the for the
For the three people.
yeah
not
for the
aware.
3 people watching YCV Live who aren't aware of what
Three
Roses
people
is.
watching YCB Live. It's a good day.
That's mean.
That is mean. I'm sorry.
Yeah, for the like small number of people who won't know what Roses is. Roses is a massive 3-day long sports fixture against Lancaster University's various sports teams in all kinds of disciplines. It's runs over 3 days. There's hundreds of matches taking place over those 3 days in all kinds of sporting disciplines, I guess.
Yeah.
And whichever uni wins more gets the trophy at the end of it. It's one giant competition made up of a load of individual matches between York and Lancaster that, because there's already a rivalry there, just heightens it a lot. So I mean,
And obviously our coverage for that is quite big.
yeah,
So.
it's probably the biggest event that probably the biggest event that we do as URY, and I'd say I'd imagine it's probably similar for YSTV.
I believe it is.
Yeah, I can't say for certain. I don't do much with YSTV, but I'd imagine it is. Yeah. But yeah, so
get kicking and screaming just for this interview.
Yeah, but I mean, Roses 2022 was sort of my first big realization of, okay, this is a big project that I'm throwing myself in at the deep end on, and it ended up being one of the best sort of experiences I've had in general while I've been at university. Like even.
Because 2022, that was a Lancaster one.
Yeah,
wasn't
that was the first post-COVID Roses. That was over in Lancaster, which we lost.
Oh.
Because, of course, it's in Lancaster. Home field advantage in Roses is unbelievably strong, but
Except for last year.
Except for last year.
Except for last year.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's not get
not go
bogged
there.
down in into university
Yeah.
politics and rivalries. So, moving on, I guess, a bit. What made you want to join URY? So, when you first came into the society?
So, I mean, I guess sort of initially, what sort of drew me to York itself was its student media scene. I knew that I wanted to get involved with student media in some way, shape, or form, and I'd always been fascinated by radio as a medium. That's a genuine thing. That's not like some kind of bullshit answer that I've come up with. That was a genuine thing of, this is a cool medium. What, like, I don't get why people dislike radio. It's genuinely a cool medium. But like, there's so many things that you can do without having, cameras in front of you. I know, of course, we are on camera at the moment, so there is that angle to it. But yeah, hello,
Can't
cameras.
do this on radio. So I'm
yeah,
just
you
gonna
can't
make
do
the
this on
most
radio.
of it.
Well, you can sort of stick a camera in a studio.
You can't broadcast
video
with radio waves. Well, theoretically, I'm not going to get into it.
Let's not get into
not go
technical
on another
discussion.
tangent.
That's for Untitled.
That's for Untitled.
That's for Untitled.
Maybe we'll discuss it on Untitled. So Yeah, is that? Sorry, I interrupted you. Were you finished?
I think I was, yeah.
Okay, so sort of moving on. A question that it's something that we are sort of is usually a question saved for when people stand down at UOI, but I thought I'll make it a little often asked question on the show.
I know where this is going. Best, worst, and funniest?
Best, worst, and funniest. Could you give me your best, worst, and funniest moments from your time at UOI so far?
Okay, so...
Doesn't have to be during your time as program controller. It can just be
Yeah.
your entire time.
So I think best moment probably was... again, we're going back to Roses for a moment. Was probably... Roses 2022. So I did a lot of mostly commentary during that Roses. Obviously, since then I've gone more into sort of production side of things. But 2022, I was dragged in to commentate the men's basketball with the absolutely wonderful William King. Who you may know who you may know as being the former host of York Yesterday.
Oh, yeah. That's a little connection now, isn't it? I forgot about that.
Yeah, I thought, oh, hang on. Yeah, he hosted York Yesterday for an entire year, didn't he? Yep, he did that. Where was I? Yes, so the basketball. And that was sort of because I understand basketball. I've watched a decent amount, but it's not something I've ever even tried to commentate on before. So it was, I mean, I'd had, experience commentating in entirely different areas. And I sort of tried at college varsity, stepping in when I was meant to be producing that stream, but we won't look there. And it ended up being definitely the best commentary that I've ever produced for a sport that I'm not comfortable commentating on. And then one of my most vivid memories is just I remember going to the Roses 2022 hashtag on Twitter, and someone had posted that the commentators were, and I'm going to quote directly here, different gravy. I was like, okay, thank you for the ego boost there. Thank you for the massive ego boost. And it's like, that is not something that I ever expected to be described as. It's like,
when you said, and I'm going to quote you, I expected it's going to be some form of expletive that you wouldn't usually say. No, it's just gravy.
No, it's just different gravy. It's like, yeah, that's why it was my best and not my worst.
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to Roses 2024, where I'm going to describe Ronald Young as different Bovril.
Yeah. So that was my best. Worst. Worst was probably. Here's a story. So during the so at the end of the last academic year, as you may well know, we turned off our AM transmitter. You know what story this is going to be, don't you? Wait, do you know what story this is?
Oh, it's another one I'm thinking of.
Which one are you thinking of?
The one we mentioned earlier in the show.
Which one?
The
No, I'm not. No,
No, you're not telling my worst story.
Not the.
Okay, so this is interesting.
Not,
I don't know this
not
one,
the
then.
crab rave incident. No,
Crab rave incident.
It was just sort of. So we'd got towards the end of having been on air consecutively for 135 hours of constant programming, through the night.
Massive
God knows what. Yeah, it was unbelievably impressive for us to manage to stay on air for that long.
I believe a lot of those hours were just you in the studio at about 2 a.m.
Yes, that is the issue. Yeah, I did shift my sleep schedule accordingly. And then it gets to the final day. We do a big outside broadcast on Greg's Place. We invite back a load of alumni. And yeah, I am incredibly tired by the end. Decide against my better judgment to not have a nap, and then unbelievably cranky, and yeah, it just was not a good time for me. I realized yeah, I really should have taken a nap.
I find that sometimes I'll think, oh, I don't want to get cranky, I don't want to get tired, I'll take a nap, and then I'm just incredibly cranky once I take a nap. Like,
Oh yeah, no, I was really cranky that Sunday, and I think everyone noticed and was like, "No, you need to go home and have a nap."
Yeah,
but also I was
vaguely
like,
remember that.
it at the time would have taken me half an hour to get back to my dorm and half an hour to get back to campus. It was not something that was particularly possible, so that was playing into my mind. And then went home. Then at the end of it all, went home, had half an hour nap, and came back for the final broadcast, which I still don't know how that happened, but yeah. And funniest.
Yeah, funniest.
This is another story, right? So URY has quite a large storage shed.
One way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, most of it is taken up by old tech and an entire room full of vinyl records. But,
Yes.
Well, vinyl records and CDs, but
Most of it's vinyl records.
most of it's vinyls, yeah. And you've been in stores. You know how that works. Yeah, you've been in. You understand how the lock on the door works.
Oh no.
Would you like to take a guess as to where this is going?
Did you get locked in stores?
I didn't quite get locked in stores. I was waiting for someone to come back and lock stores.
So you were locked.
So I stood around in stores for about 20 minutes thinking, okay, so when's someone going to come back and lock up so that I can leave? Not realizing
It locks.
it's on a latch. It will lock when you leave. You don't need to lock it manually. You idiot. So I just stood in stores for about 20 minutes. Everyone was wondering, what took you so long? I was like,
waiting for someone to lock.
I was
stores.
waiting for someone to come lock stores. You were what? I was waiting for someone to come lock stores.
When was this? Like, how long had you been in UOI at this point?
I had been in. I had been a good 9 months. This was at our last academic year. This was at our like freshers tech event.
Okay, yeah.
This was the strip down the OB kit. This is how it all works. Let's put it back together again. Event that, let's be honest, wasn't great.
Yeah.
I don't think many people came outside of like people who were all either already on engineering team, or people who were already established members of URY who just wanted to know how it worked.
Yeah.
I.e. me. Hello.
You. So, anyway, so coming towards the end of the show a bit, but just one final question, which is just, what advice would you give to someone who may want to become program controller after you?
Don't. Don't. It's a horrible, horrible job. I know that's not a good thing to say, but please, I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
Okay, but if they don't have a choice, they're already elected.
Yeah, if you've already been elected, first off, good luck, and second off, try not to take things as seriously. Obviously, take things with the amount of seriousness that they require, because obviously you are dealing with you are the point of contact for if URY does anything that breaks Ofcom's rules, that breaks, licensing laws, any of that kind of thing. You are the first port of call for what on earth has gone on here. And also, if there is, a presenter who there are issues with, do flag it up with them. Do mention it.
Don't be afraid of confronting someone.
Don't be afraid of having to be confrontational, because I know, especially for me, it's been quite hard to, say, like, there are these concerns, and just wanted to check in and make sure you were definitely, you knew what you were doing, you knew what the rules were, what you are and aren't allowed to do, that sort of thing. I think it was quite hard for me to sort of get used to that. Because, I mean, the thing is, it's arguably It's in a sense the most powerful role in the society, and that's not something that should be taken lightly.
Yeah.
By any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, so just try to not be afraid of having to enforce the rules, because that is your job. Your job is to enforce the society's rules on, well, not just our rules. It's a combination of, Ofcom's rules, the rules around our music broadcasting license, it's the USU Media Charter, it's all of these different things coming together to make our own specific set of rules. And it does become sort of a thing of, these are the rules we have. It's your job to make sure that people follow them, and
yeah. So I think with that, I think it's time to say goodbye. Do you have anything else you'd like to say before we disappear into the ether?
Not a lot, other than thank you very much for having me on.
No problem. Thank you for coming along.
It's just been nice to chat about, what being program controller involves, and some of the wonderful things that have happened, and hopefully tell some fun stories along the way.
Yeah.
Especially about that stores incident.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for watching. I've been Corey Anson. This has been Ronald Young. And you've been watching Radio on the TV?
I like how you swap between the two.
Sorry?
I like how you swap between the two, by the way. You introduced me as Ronnie, and now you've
now I've switched
signed
Ronald.
off as
Didn't
Ronald.
even notice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyway.
And good night.
Good night.